Hello, welcome to the Alchemy of Intimacy. This is week 13, transformation through Venus rising or Mars rising. So if you've been going from the beginning of the book to now, not saying that you have to, but earlier we covered the moon, and the moon being something that you've already mastered. The rising sign being something that you're here to learn about, you're here to master. Venus being your inner feminine. Mars being your inner masculine. The inner feminine, let's just go to page 72. Your inner feminine. Venus represents the way you attract and what you are attracted to. It is our desire for beauty and pleasure. So the questions are, what is pleasurable to me? What do I deem as valuable enough to spend money on? How do I lure, attract, or draw things into my life? So Venus has that, it's the desire, it's sort of like there's a puzzle piece within us, and we are wanting to draw in what fits. We want to draw in what fits into that. So that's Venus, drawing in. And then Mars represents eros or bravado, the way you go out and assert yourself in the world. The definition for eros from the Webster Dictionary: the sum of life-preserving instincts that are manifested as impulses to gratify basic needs, as sublimated impulses, as impulses to protect and preserve the body and the mind. That is the definition of eros. Bravado is basically like your gusto, the way that you sort of take the world by storm. It's energy going outward. The symbol for Mars is actually a circle with a little arrow projecting out. And I think of that as, personally, a lingam or a penis. It's energy going outward. And because men do have that projection out, their regenerative organs are on the outside. They see them all the time. They handle it. They handle it, meaning with their hand, because just to go pee, it's like you kind of, they're very aware of that. And for women, females, that is inside. We don't know. We have to get a mirror if we want to see that. It's a whole different experience that is very mysterious. It's very dark. It's very hidden. And it goes inward. It does have a vacuum effect. And if you have been practicing with yoni eggs or have any experience or knowledge of that, you will feel that there is an actual, like, pulling inward effect. There is a natural inclination to drawing that egg up in toward the body, bringing it in, Venus. So questions for Mars: how do I make things happen in the world? What do I consider to be my inner polarity between anger and passion? So Mars is often associated with that rage and passion, and it's fiery, it's assertive. The polarity between anger and passion is a very magical place where if you've ever been involved with, I think, the stereotype of Latin women, maybe Latin men too, or just the spiciness of those cultures, the Latin cultures, that they can go from, passionately rageful into like passionately making love. And there is a polarity between the passion of anger and the passion of sexuality or creativity, or anything that brings your fire, your inner fire from the belly, from the womb, that brings that up and out into the experience. And that's associated with Mars, with the would call it masculine energy, but I'm just going to call it Mars energy. What is the thing or topic in life that I can't hold back from fiercely standing up for? So Mars has something that it's fiercely committed to. It's connected to fiercely something. It wants to have a project or something that it's standing up for, protecting in some way. And we all have that somewhere in us. And people who don't know what that is, I find it to be mostly people who went to college, got a job in their field, and don't feel passionate about it, but they're doing it because that's, what they spent all their resources on, Venus, all their time and efforts in getting that degree and doing that thing. So they don't necessarily feel passionately connected to it. In those cases, it's a little bit tougher to, there's a lot to unravel. Like, where am I? Who am I? And what am I passionate about? For many other people, artists especially, they know what they're passionate about. And it's woven into every piece of their life. And this is Mars. Mars, not saying that Mars is the artist. I'm not saying that. But art is a combination of Venus and Mars together. To be an artist, Venus and Mars need to be dancing together. All right. So for week 13, what we're going to do is connect the moon with the rising sign first, to find out, well, we've done that in previous chapters, knowing what the moon is, knowing what the rising sign is. So what we're going to do is locate the moon, take a moment to connect with the soul lineage, giving honor and thanks for all of those moon traits that we have, all the ways that we feed the moon in our life. So moon things, I have a Cancer moon, so my moon things would be cooking food, cleaning the house, being domesticated. Those are my moon things. So locate your moon, find out what your moon things are. You can write that here in this section of the book or in your notebook, whatever you're working with. Next thing we're going to do, locate the rising sign. That's going to be in the first house. Write down the sign position of your rising and anything that sign provokes in you. So my example, I have Taurus rising, so I'm going to write down Taurus and whatever that provokes in me. Just a while ago, my daughter was looking at this chart that I'm working with, and she said, Taurus really looks like a uterus with the fallopian tubes. And I was like, yeah, it sure does. And there's a lot in that. It has to do with the fertility of the earth, the pleasure and abundance of the earth. Everything about the earth's fertility, that's Taurus. So whatever your ascendant, your rising sign brings up in you, just initially, I have, say I have Scorpio rising, so I'm going to, Scorpio, and there's this little stinger on the end of it. What does that evoke in you? Just quickly, without having to Google search anything, just write down what that brings up or provokes in you. This is what you are learning to master in this lifetime. It may be helpful to draw or print images of anything that represents your ascendant. The next thing you're going to do, locate Venus position. The Venus position gives you clues about the form of the goddess you are representing or your inner feminine. For men, locate your Mars position, which gives you clues about the form of the god you are representing or your inner masculine. Draw or print an image that represents this material for you. So here we have it separated. And this, I wrote this in 2017, 2018 version, I probably wouldn't separate for men and for women. I would probably separate it a little bit differently but if it feels comfortable for you, maybe just, read the material and work it whatever way you want to. It doesn't need to be so defined as Venus is for women and Mars is for men. It's just that Venus as I mentioned, has that inward energy, and a female has that yoni that is inward and mysterious and dark, and it goes in. It's like Venus, the way the regenerative organs are set up. And then for men, they have that projection going outward. It is like Mars. So you can work with it from that way, which is the traditional way, or investigate your own, just try it out. This is just information. It's all theories. It's all up for change. It's changeable. The next thing we're going to do, consider the idea of alchemical transformation. Basic alchemy requires three things: a container, a substance to be transformed, and the energy. So we're going to use your awareness as the container, your Venus or Mars combined with the rising sign as the substance to be transformed. So basically what you're doing, if I'm going to use my own again, my Venus is in Aquarius. I would take Aquarius with my rising sign, Taurus, and hold those two together in my awareness, because what's happening now is an alchemical transformation where my Venus is no longer just Aquarius. I'm bringing that into my rising sign, Taurus. So I'm holding these two in my awareness, Aquarius and Taurus. This is my Venus rising. It's this combination. So holding those two in your awareness, and then your own intention as the source of energy to create the information, the transformation. So we're doing a basic alchemy with our Venus and a rising sign, or your Mars and your rising sign. I personally would do both, because what I found more and more over the years working with this material, that my inner masculine is just as prevalent and important to me as my inner feminine. Just because I'm not a male, I don't have my regenerative organs going outward, my masculine essence is just as important as my feminine essence. So I would do this in two different segments, in two different sittings. Do Venus rising for yourself, and then also do Mars rising for yourself. Hold these three things together for as long as possible, as many times per day, until it becomes part of your new perception. Then I wrote, it sounds simple, but the human mind can hold awareness on a subject for a very short time, about 6 seconds or so. So this method of internal alchemy is simple yet profound when we practice and take it seriously. So doing, maybe for 1 week, you're going to focus on bringing together Venus and the rising sign into your awareness. Maybe the next week, you're going to focus on bringing your Mars and your rising sign into your awareness. And then do also with your descendant. Never forget the descendant, because this is it's the opposition of what we're here to learn about. It's what we're learning about in relationship with others. So taking your Venus and that descendant. So my descendant is Scorpio. So I would take Aquarius and Scorpio and hold those two together in my awareness, bringing an alchemical container for those two to be transformed into one. And then the same thing with Mars and the descendant. So the way that it's not traditional, but the way that my school does astrology readings for relationships is that I'm a female, so my Venus would go with my rising sign as my what I'm rising into as a female in a female body. And then my Mars would be combined with my descendant, what I am most attracted to in the other, whether it's a female or a male. It's what I consider to be my inner beloved, what I'm most attracted to. For me, that is Mars and Scorpio. Sorry, my Mars is in Pisces. So you take your Mars, whatever sign that is, and connect it with your descendant, which will be in the 7th house, directly opposite to your 1st house. Combine your sign of Mars and your sign of the descendant together in a container. Hold those two things together. This actually has been a huge part of my integration of my masculine energy. So I really recommend doing that too. That's not in the book. That's not part of this week's work, but just, you know, a level up from what's here. And maybe that's to come later. Maybe you're, you know, maybe now you're just doing Venus and Mars rising. Okay, I do want to read this quote from Alan Watts. Love is not a sort of rare commodity. Everybody has it. Existence is love. Everybody has the force running. Perhaps the way in which you find the force of love operating in you is as passionate, like for booze or ice cream or automobiles or good-looking members of the opposite sex or even the same sex. But love is operating there. People, of course, tend to distinguish between various kinds of love. There are good kinds, such as divine charity, and there are allegedly bad kinds, such as animal lust. But they are all forms of the same thing. They relate in much the same way as the colors of the spectrum produced by the passing lights through a prism. That's from Alan Watts. Okay, so thank you very much for watching the video. That was week 13. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email and I will be happy to answer the best that I can. Thank you so much, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.